If you combine tadalafil, which increases lipolysis, with carnitine, which increases fatty acid absorption and oxidation, then you basically have a one-way street from your adipose tissue to the mitochondria. And assuming you do, cardio activity and keep your calories low for favorable fat loss. Body fat management, again, to keep your estrogen levels down. Elimination diet. You can follow a paleo diet, a pescatarian diet, a ketogenic diet, a vegan diet, a carnivore diet, a low FODMAP diet, whatever diet works for you. Well, how do you say this? There's a lot of fanatics in the diet space. I don't really mind what diet you follow. If it's carnivore and it works and you keep your total cholesterol levels under control, go for it. If you like paleo, go for it. If you like pescatarian, go for it. Personally, I do keto. It gives me the most cognition out of all of the diets that I've tried. And I'm not 100% keto. I still have fruit post-workout 4 to 5 times per week. So I don't really exclude any food sources, right? I have my carbs, I have my fats and my protein sources and my vegetables. And I feel that it's doing me a world of good. My digestion, absolutely perfect. But it takes a couple iterations of dietary adjustments before everything is dialed in. What I can tell you is minimizing processed foods, which is hard in America. Right? I'm going to be honest. I was in America for an entire month last year, and it's very hard to minimize processed foods unless you have your own kitchen. Right? I was traveling, so I ate. No, let's not go there. After eating out a lot, my blood work parameters were not good. Yeah, so I would advise people not to do that every single day if you live in the US, or at least not go to the places that I went to. Maybe I just made poor choices. Anyway, so minimize processed foods, right? Cook your own meals or go with a meal prep company that is known to produce high quality food that is fresh and that you can microwave and still taste good with a lot of protein, healthy carbs, and healthy fats. Make sure that you're always in a micronutrient sufficient state. This is very, very, very important. Not just magnesium, not just calcium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K. All of the micronutrients. Your body just doesn't work on calories alone. It doesn't work on testosterone alone. It works on micronutrients. B vitamins contribute to hundreds of processes. Magnesium contributes to hundreds of processes. And niacin, right, one of the B vitamins, converts into nicotinamide mononucleotide, which contributes to NAD+, which NAD+ and some of its derivatives regulate thousands of enzymatic reactions, including the conversion of testosterone into estradiol, including the conversion of testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, and neurotransmitters. I mean, the list goes on. So you need nutrients to function correctly, and you'll be surprised how many ailments you can solve simply by eating healthy. And then, of course, caloric adjustments and restriction based on your individual goals. Exercise. Vigorous resisting training is known to increase testosterone levels, improve androgen receptor density, and even reduce myostatin levels. So with all of those benefits, why not go to the gym? 10-minute walks following meals to improve insulin sensitivity has been shown to be as beneficial, apparently, compared to metformin. Cardio, whether that's fasted or post-workout, the scientific evidence is always based on hundreds of studies. It doesn't really matter when you do fasted cardio or post-workout cardio. Just do cardio and the fat loss will be the same. But that's usually not performed in the context of hormone replacement therapy and using fat-burning aids like L-carnitine or even Cialis, which has some scientific evidence behind it that it can increase lipolysis. And then there's always a standing desk or a treadmill to kind of keep you active. Steven was just doing this right now before we started this presentation. Not Steve, Steven, one of the good guys over at Merrick Health. All right. There's also pharmacological aids for body fat management. So carnitine, whether that's oral or injectable, that is highly beneficial to help with the absorption of medium and long-chain triglycerides into the mitochondria, where they're burnt for energy production, so you can lose some body fat. So if you combine, I know Cialis is a little bit down the list, but let's just go over this combination. If you combine tadalafil, which increases lipolysis, with carnitine, which increases fatty acid absorption and oxidation, then you basically have a one-way street from your adipose tissue to the mitochondria. And assuming you do, cardio activity and keep your calories low for favorable fat loss, then this over time results in fat loss and maybe reduce the requirement for an aromatase inhibitor to keep your testosterone levels nicely in range while keeping your estrogen in range. If that's not sufficient, if the carnitine and the tadalafil and the caloric restriction is making you significantly hungry, then consider looking into glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists, like liraglutide, dulaglutide, or semaglutide, which is a combination glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist with a gastric inhibitory polypeptide, also known as glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. 2 names, 1 function. Tirzepatide specifically has been FDA approved as of recent, so availability might vary. There's another compound called retatrutide, but that's not FDA approved yet, so let's leave that off the table. I found that liraglutide is very beneficial if you still want to have a normal appetite on Saturday or Sunday, because dulaglutide, semaglutide, and tirzepatide have very long active lives. Now, this is something you need to discuss with your healthcare provider. What I've always done is daily or 3 times weekly administrations. Liraglutide, I would take a low dose daily, and dulaglutide, semaglutide, or tirzepatide, instead of 1 administration per week, I would do 3 administrations at a lower dose. And what I've noticed, again, no scientific evidence to back this up, but this is just pure anecdotal experience. What I've noticed is that the weekly dose can be significantly lower if you inject 3 times per week. Right? Your mileage might vary, everybody is different, but instead of running 5 milligrams tirzepatide per week, which is the starting dose clinically, or 2 to 5 milligrams semaglutide, I can get away with 1 milligram or half a milligram 3 times per week for sufficient appetite suppression. Now, glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists are a hot topic nowadays, right? There's a lot of, it's in the news, it's on billboards in the United States. I think me and Derek from More Plates, More Dates, the owner of Merrick Health, the co-owner, we were one of the first to talk about these compounds publicly. It's now gone mainstream. All your favorite celebrities are running these kinds of compounds, but it also means that there's a good amount of scientific evidence that we can review. So because glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists used long-term have been associated with the risk of thyroid cancers by 58%. Again, this is a scientific study you would be well off reading yourself, because there's a lot to go into. And it's been associated with medullary thyroid cancer by 78%. Patients included in the other 2 groups of exposure of less than 3 years and over 3 years also showed a higher risk of incidence of thyroid malignancy, although the intergroup difference was not significantly relevant due to a low number of cases. So that's only 40 cases. So keep this in mind, right? All drugs that are shown to be highly effective in a certain extent also have negative side effects. So that is unfortunate. This is also of note. Of 56,000 patients with type 2 diabetes, keep in mind that glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists are traditionally type 2 diabetic medications, with a mean follow-up time ranging between 1.3 years to 5.4 years, a total of 180 cases with acute pancreatitis and 108 cases of pancreatic cancer were reported. So again, 56,000 patients and let's say 400 cases of pancreatic issues. I'm not entirely sure what that percentage is, but it's still statistically significant, and that's with long-term exposure. So I would like everybody to be well aware of these risks, because you need to take all risks serious. And then here, regarding the Cialis, this is a small study where where it was shown that after 2 to 6 hours after injection of Cialis, free-form fatty acids and glycerol in the bloodstream increased, and that basically increases lipolysis without affecting cyclic guanosine monophosphate and nitric oxide levels in the bloodstream. Telmisartan is a partial peroxisome peripheral activated gamma receptor agonist. And even though the scientific literature is promising when it comes to PPAR gamma agonists, especially telmisartan, that it can increase metabolic activity and might result in fat loss, in practical application, I would not say that that's the case. Right? Sometimes the scientific evidence plays out in the real world, and sometimes it doesn't. I've talked to bodybuilders that took up to 80 milligrams of telmisartan per day and did not notice any significant fat loss, even in a caloric deficit, after ramping up the dose to 80 milligrams per day. Still, the scientific evidence shows that PPAR gamma activation improves metabolic energy expenditure and might result in fat loss. So if you were to go with an angiotensin receptor blocker, based on the scientific literature, I would prefer telmisartan. But again, there might be some contraindications there. And then there's metformin, which improve glucose homeostasis. But now that glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists are there, and we discussed diet at length, I don't think that metformin is going to be needed.